Hello everyone, this is the history tutorial video for class 9. We were doing the Russian Revolution. Today we are going to look at the 1905 revolution and what sparked the 1905 revolution. So we know that the early part of the 20th century, that is before 1905, Russia was an absolute monarchy. That is the king, the Tsar of Russia. He had absolute power. He was all powerful. We have seen in Eastern European countries, in the previous chapter we have seen that during the later part of the 19th century, these autocratic powers, these monarchies, they underwent a reform of sorts, a sort of modernization reform, where the parliament kind of reduced the power of the king, and the king was not absolutely powerful. He wasn't all powerful. He was under the power of the parliament. But Russian Empire did not have this reform. The king was still an all-powerful figure of the monarchy. So even at the beginning of the 20th century, the Tsar was not subject to the parliament. The Tsar was not under the parliament. Liberals in Russia campaigned to end this state of affairs. Liberals who were in Russia, they campaigned, they protested, they fought for this situation to end. Together with the Social Democrats and the Socialist Revolutionaries, they worked with the farmers and workers during the 1905 revolution to demand a constitution for Russia. The year 1904 was particularly bad for the Russian Empire and for the Russian workers, especially the Russian workers. Prices of essential goods rose so quickly that real wages declined by 20%. So the real wages that were declined by 20% because the prices of the goods in the market that rose because of a bad harvest, because of a bad season, because the crops did not grow properly, so prices rose and real wages declined by 20%. The membership of Workers' Association rose dramatically. So the Workers' Association, the trade union organization that the Russian workers had, the Russian factories had, membership of those organizations increased. When 4 members of the Assembly of Russian Workers were dismissed as the Putilov Iron Works. So the Putilov Iron Works was an iron factory, and the trade union of that factory was the Assembly of Russian Workers. So 4 members were dismissed from the Assembly of Russian Workers by the owners of the factory. There was a call for strike. When this happened, there was a call for strike. Over the next few days, over 100,000 workers in St. Petersburg went on strike, demanding a reduction in the working day for 8 hours, an increase in the wage, and improvement in the working conditions. So there were mainly 3 demands of the Russian workers. Number 1, reduction in the working hours. They worked for 12 to 15 hours. That should be reduced to 8 hours. Number 1. Number 2 is an increase in the wage, an increase in the money they got for their work, for their labor. And number 3 is improvement in the working conditions, because the Russian workers, they worked in very hazardous conditions, very dangerous conditions for themselves and their health. So improvement was very much needed for the Russian workers to continue their working. When the procession of workers led by Father Gapon reached the Winter Palace, it was attacked by the police and the Cossacks. So there was a procession, there was a michil of sorts, where workers were led by a man called Father Gapon. So they reached the Winter Palace. Winter Palace is the place where the king lived, similar to the Rashtrapati Bhavan we have in India, where the president lives, or the Raj Bhavan we have in Kolkata, where the governor lives. Similarly, the Winter Palace was the king's residence. The Tsar lived in the Winter Palace. So when this procession reached the Winter Palace, it was attacked by the police. Over 100 workers were killed and about 300 wounded. This incident came to be known as Bloody Sunday. This Bloody Sunday incident started a series of events that became known as the 1905 Revolution. Strikes took place all over the country, and universities were closed down. Student bodies staged walkouts. The student organizations, they staged walkouts, complaining about the lack of civil liberties. Lawyers, doctors, engineers, other middle class workers, they established the Union of Unions and demanded a constituent assembly. They demanded a parliament which would control the king's powers. Now, during this 1905 revolution, the Tsar finally allowed to create an elective consultative parliament which was called the Duma. So, for a brief while, for a small period of time during this revolution, there existed a large number of trade unions and factory committees made up of factory workers. After 1905, most of these committees and unions were working unofficially because they were declared illegal. Several restrictions were placed on political activities. Now, the Duma that was created, the parliament that was created, or the elected consultative parliament, that was dismissed by the Tsar within 75 days. So, within the 75 days of creating the Duma, the Tsar dismisses it and re-elected the second Duma within 3 months. Also, the second Duma did not last very long. It was also dismissed because the Tsar did not want any questioning of his authority or any reduction of his power. So the Duma or the parliament that was actually created, that was only for show. That was only for showing the people that okay, fine, you are wanting this to happen. Okay, fine, I'll give you the parliament. But the parliament did not have any right to question the king. He did not want any questions. He did not want anyone to question his authority or reduce his powers. So what he did, he changed the voting laws and he filled the third Duma with conservative politicians. The third Duma was elected, and in that third Duma, the Tsar put his own men, the conservative politicians, who will not question his authority, who will not say that your powers should be reduced, who will follow the Tsar's orders unquestioningly. So, by his own men, he filled the third Duma, and liberals and revolutionaries were kept out because they asked too many questions. They demanded that the Tsar's powers should be reduced. So, this was the 1905 revolution. We are done with it. We will meet again in the next video. We will see how the Russian society was, how the Russian nationalism worked during the First World War, and what was the condition of Russia after the First World War. So that we will see in the next video. Till then, bye.